So welcome to Kiln. So I like to tell this story when I welcome Braid to Kiln because I got this job because Allison, who's the founder of Braid, heard about this opening, thought of me, and recommended me for this position. So I have this job because of Braid and because of the wonderful networks that happen when women meet other women. So tell Allison when you meet her, obviously she's an absolutely remarkable connector, and she honestly cares about every single one of us so much and is constantly thinking of us and opportunities for us, and I know that firsthand. So I've been here for about a month. Kiln has been open for about 12 weeks, so it's a co-working space. If you're not familiar with a co-working space, we have the floor, and then we rent space out based on individuals or desks for everyone to be able to come in and use. So a lot of people who are currently working at home, or they're finding that's not working for them, or they are recently starting to freelance and they're leaving a job, whatever, we are a perfect solution for all of those kinds of solutions. So we have 3 different levels. One is the club membership, which some of you might be interested in, and that is $195 a month. You can come in and work from any of these desks right here, or any of the beautiful couches. I don't know, you guys should walk around this space right before you leave, or I can take you on a tour, but feel free to wander around and look. Just don't touch anyone's computers. And look at all the beautiful spaces there is to come and work out of, and the wonderful neighbors that you would have, and how inspiring it is to be working alongside so many other people, so many other founders and young companies that are chasing what they're doing. And while in Braid we may have very many creative entrepreneurs and tech entrepreneurs are not that different. While the space is mainly full of tech entrepreneurs and creative entrepreneurs are really speaking about the same issues, and you're thinking about the same things. A lot of times we're just calling them different things. So everyone is welcome in this space, all types of entrepreneurs, all types of founders and their teams. After the club membership, there's a resident desk so that you can come and leave a monitor and have a designated space that's yours. That's $375 a month. And then if you want a desk within a private office, and you have like 4 or so people that you'd like to move in and have a private office, those are $445 per desk per month. So it's a really great solution if you have a small team and you don't want to take on a lease. So keep that in mind. If your dreams grow to the point that you're like, oh my gosh, then I have to have an office, don't worry about that. That's exactly what a space like this is for. So don't let all those, all that technical stuff worry you. Just worry about starting your company, worry about hiring the right people and building your team, and let something like this solve the rest of it so that you can do the very best that you can build your company. So that's what we're here for. Please walk around the beautiful space, take pictures in it, whatever you want to do after this. It's a very photogenic place. And we're excited to have you here tonight.
Also, Kiln has a really awesome app where you can download and become a member for free, and they post all their current events, and
it just keeps you connected to the community, even if you're not one of those levels that we talked about. You can get on the app and see the events like this one you could have discovered, like Andre did. Here, welcome Andre. We love having you. We have a couple of them in this.
Yes.
We always do. Thank you for coming.
And it has they have people that have offices that have done articles and whatnot, and they usually share on there, and it's just a nice app to be a part of, and you can do that for free. So if we can have our panelists come up, we'll get started right away. So we just want to introduce everyone, so if you could go and give us your name, what company you're working with, and something you need help with. That's one thing with Braid. We have a poster on the back where you can write something you need help with, and hopefully someone in the community can be able to help you with that. So think of one thing. It could be personal, it could be business, it doesn't really matter. Whatever is one thing that you could use a little help on. And it could be super simple. So yeah.
My name is Samantha Thee. I work at Utah Valley University in the Development and Alumni Department. So that's the fundraising shop, something that I need help with. I'm currently selling tables for our President's Scholarship Ball. So if you know anybody who wants to donate to scholarships and have a great night out, let me know.
My name is Allie, and I'm the founder of Men & Co. And we're a textile company that works with indigenous artisans around the world, mainly Guatemala, Morocco, and Ghana. And let's see, I need help with a lot of stuff. But we are hiring graphic designers, customer service, and office manager. Anybody knows anyone who wants to apply?
My name is Melanie Rossiter. I work for Vivid Gives Back, which is the philanthropic arm of Vivid Smart Home. And right now we partner with Make-A-Wish, and we have a wish that we're fulfilling next week. And we're throwing this little girl a party, and it's Harry Potter themed. It's So I'm looking for Harry Potter decorations, if anyone has any of those.
Hi, my name is Tanei Henry. I run Provo Girls Summit, which is a career exploration event for girls who are ages 8 to 12. I can always use help. Sui Lang was one of our women last year. It was very cool. But I'm always looking for great female or women workers. So if you can recommend somebody to be a professional, or if you just want to help our cause, let me know.
Good evening. My name is Sui Lang Panoke, and I guess I run two organizations. So currently one is Women Politics Media, which provides leadership communications training for women who are interested in running for public office, just engaging in the political arena. And then also Rethink International, which we run rethink tanks, which operate as social think tanks designed to challenge women and men challenge them how to rethink how and what they think. In terms of what I need help with, I think I'll just take this opportunity to make an announcement about an event that we're hosting September 19th. It'll be on a Friday. So we host these rethink tanks, and I'm partnering with the Mormon Women for Ethical Government. So we'll have like an intimate, about 25 to 30 women sitting in a circle. We'll be discussing gun policy. So if you're interested in that, come see me afterwards, and I'll give you more details.
All right, my name is Melissa Sevy, and I also run a couple of different things. So a nonprofit called Musana, we do employment education for women in Uganda. So somewhat crossover with Nene & Co. They make jewelry that we sell here in the US. And then associated with that, we have a for-profit social enterprise called Fairkind, where we work with Indigenous artisans around the world and specifically source for companies. So we do corporate gifting and resell. So let's see, I was thinking of like 17 things, but the one thing. If anybody has ideas or has had experience with working with independent consultants and working on rates and all of that, that's a question that we're molding through as we're diving into that for the first time. So, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, we have to pass it back. Okay, thank you so much. So there are 6 panelists. We only have 45 minutes. So we'll get through as many questions as possible. And you guys don't all have to answer every question. You can kind of pass around whoever feels passionate about whatever question I ask. You can just kind of pass around. And if we could try to just keep it between, 1 or 2 minutes each. That way we can get through a lot of content. So first question is, how do you define social impact? And what does that mean for the mission of your organization? So I'll just pass to whoever wants to do that.
Sure. Okay. So I am passionate about these two words together, social impact. We are in a really dynamic time for doing social good, whereas traditionally there were some really defined boxes of how you can engage in social good. You either work for the government or you start a nonprofit. And these lines are now blurring, where there's this whole spectrum of ways you can engage in doing good, from a traditional nonprofit that's fully funded by grants, and then this whole gamut to the other side where there's businesses that have a social good, social impact. And then in between is kind of this fusion, or nonprofits that have like a social enterprise within them, a income generating model. So there's this whole spectrum. All of it is under the umbrella of social impact. So no longer do we have to be like, oh, you do good, you must be whatever assumptions traditionally were there. There's a lot. And so there's a lot of room to innovate within this field, which is exciting.
So what does social impact mean to me? Since my area of expertise is kind of challenging and changing the way in which we socialize with one another, I think there's a very broad kind of organic definition for me in terms of social impact. I mean, you can have an impact just having a conversation with someone that you disagree with. And so kind of creating spaces and opportunities in which we can build bridges amongst people of different points of view, diverse backgrounds, I think absolutely can cause a very significant social impact.
I agree with what Sui Lang said, especially we can do very small things to have a social impact and reach people and lift them up wherever they are. And I think that we all need to be socially impacted, whether we recognize it or not. And so I think so we can do big things, we can do small things in order to be socially impactful.
So I found this definition and it really helped me understand social impact. So it's an individual or an organization's actions that effectively help a community's well-being. So whatever that community is, you decide what that can help me. So whether you're an individual in your actions or an organization and your impact, you can help others either way.
Perfect. That kind of leads into, I'm going to combine two questions here because you did do a little bit of an intro of what your organization is as far as, you know, the name and the very brief definition of what you guys are doing. But who or what inspired you to work in social impact? And then maybe give a little bit of a bigger explanation of what exactly you are doing, what's the mission of like your organization?
Okay. So that was a great definition. I think it's very true. So the impact of what we're creating, what it has on that community. And for me, I started my company because I'm Guatemalan and my mom was born and raised there. And when I would travel the world and when I specifically would go to Guatemala, I felt like there was a lot of missed opportunities with a lot of talent. And so what I wanted to do was we call our design process a collaboration between ourselves and the artisans and, you know, around the world. And for us, tell me the main question, just to the question again.
Yeah, just you answered the first part of, you know, how you got into it and why you're doing social impact, but kind of how that goes along
How we have that
with
impact.
the mission of your organization, the goals and mission.
Yeah. And well, so my main thing was I want to help my people. I want to help the people of Guatemala, and I specifically want to help the indigenous people that don't have access to internet, sometimes don't have access to water, but are so crazy talented that they need to be making money. And the art of weaving is dying all over the world, especially with the countries we're working in, Guatemala, Ghana, Morocco. And I wanted to preserve that culture, and I wanted them to know that it's not dying. You don't have to go work in a factory or as a maid, because that's oftentimes what they would have to do. You can continue what your mom taught you, what your grandma taught you, and you can make good money. So our goal is to, if they don't understand it, teach them the value and make sure they're getting paid fair. And that's a big deal to me because we see a lot of beautiful stuff and we just want the cheapest, best deal. So we work really hard to educate our customer on why the price is what it is, and it's because we are fair to all the people we're dealing with.
So Vivid Gives Back, our mission is to help individuals with an intellectual and developmental disability. So back in high school, I was introduced to a program called Best Buddies. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of that before. But basically, it matches a high school student with another high school student that has a disability. And Best Buddies is international, and it has all sorts of ranks. So it actually starts in junior high and goes up through college and even community members. So I had been introduced to that in high school, and I became so passionate about it because the mission for Best Buddies was to put themselves out of business, basically. Because if they were able to do that, that means that individuals with special needs didn't have to be matched by a program, that they would have friendships and relationships and a sphere of influence without having to be matched by someone. I later went on to college and directed that program at Utah State University for a few years. And my relationships just grew and blossomed, and I learned so much from the individuals that I was matched with. And those relationships became amazing friendships, and I'm actually really good friends with a lot of those people still. And so when I heard Vivid Gives Back and what their mission was, I wanted to be an advocate for that. We do a lot of community events. We do a huge autism awareness month, which is in April, and we have a unique opportunity to work with the Utah Jazz and to do a autism awareness game night, which is a really fun way because a lot of families have kids with autism or other sort of intellectual or developmental disabilities don't often get to go into the public. It's really overwhelming, it's a sensory overload, and we've decided to create an experience for one night that anyone is welcome. And those kids wear special shirts, and the families wear shirts too. It says, awareness lives here. And so if someone in the arena sees someone that is absolutely throwing a fit or a tantrum, that child may be so sensory overloaded and maybe just so overwhelmed by everything going on at the game. But for that minute, it connects an awareness between that community member at the game to someone with autism and an understanding that, oh, you know what, this might be autism. Let me be patient with this person in line. Let me be patient with this child screaming or trying to steal my clappers or whatever that may be. And that awareness in the community, just for that 1 minute, gives that mom and that family a minute to feel like they're normal and they're not out of place in those situations. So that's just kind of one example that we're really trying to create advocates in the community and within our employee base and within all of our volunteers and everyone that we work with to just love and understand maybe things that people don't know or are uncomfortable with. Sometimes people haven't worked with individuals with special needs and it's really different. So just creating that acceptance and love is something that I love about the Vegas Rock too.
So I was inspired. I've always been interested in social impact, like our friend here said. I've been doing this stuff since I was in high school, and I was a high school English teacher. You know, the teachers on the front line of social impact. But if you've ever read these terrible they weren't studies, these internet articles where they said that Utah is like one of the worst places for women to live for various unresearched reasons. I just thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm raising 2 daughters here, and none of the women that we are interacting with are, feeling repressed or feeling like they are living in a bad place. Not to say it's not happening, but I just thought, oh, I can do something about this. And so our goal is to make sure that young girls see women who are doing all sorts of things. So paleontology, engineering, Sui Lang, whatever it is. So many things
Still figuring it out.
That women in Utah are doing. And then they can grow up and say, I can do that too. I can be a scientist. I can be whatever I want. So thank you.
So Tanei and I's missions align very closely. What inspired me was basically my observation of the disparities that exist. When you look out in society, you see leadership, you see power, right? And when those models don't look like you, it piques some curiosity in your mind. And so, my passion is really getting women involved in public policy and leadership in both the public and private sector. And me growing up here in Salt Lake City, Utah, I'm originally from Hawaii, but I was raised here. I didn't see very many models in the public policy arena that looked like me or thought like me or essentially were female. And so that kind of sparked my interest in pursuing a career in politics. I lived in Washington, D.C. for 13 years. Where I was surrounded by amazing, amazing women who shared the same passion. And one thing I did learn is when you I can identify women who have similar interests and similar to the mission of Braid, right? Bringing all of those voices and minds and ideas together, you can have an extremely powerful, powerful impact. Utah is one of the lowest in terms of women's representation in the state legislature. But I also believe that the talent pool of women here in Utah is one of the most untapped resources our country has, right? It's like phenomenal women, we have the talent if we could just open up those opportunities through things like what Tanei is doing and everyone else here on the panel. I think we can capitalize on that resource. So inspiration, all of you sitting here today. So very simple.
Sui Lang for legislator. I'm behind the scenes. No, we got you. So I kind of came at this in a very roundabout way. Went abroad 9 years ago with a particular focus. I was in Uganda, and then just saw the situation where many women had the economic burden for the home, but there was very little work for women in the local community, and so.
And that awareness in the community, just for that 1 minute, gives that mom and that family a minute to feel like they're normal and they're not out of place in those situations. So that's just kind of one example that we're really trying to create advocates in the community and within our employee base and within all of our volunteers and everyone that we work with to just love and understand maybe things that people don't know or are uncomfortable with. Sometimes people haven't worked with individuals with special needs and it's really different. So just creating that acceptance and love is something that I love about Vivint Gives Back too.
So I was inspired. I've always been interested in social impact, like our friend here said. I've been doing this stuff since I was in high school, and I was a high school English teacher. You know, the teachers on the front line of social impact. But if you've ever read these terrible they weren't studies, these internet articles where they said that Utah is like one of the worst places for women to live for various unresearched reasons. I just thought, oh, that's interesting. I'm raising 2 daughters here, and none of the women that we are interacting with are, feeling repressed or feeling like they are living in a bad place. Not to say it's not happening, but I just thought, oh, I can do something about this. And so our goal is to make sure that young girls see women who are doing all sorts of things. So paleontology, engineering, Sui Lang, whatever it is. So many things that women in Utah are doing. And then they can grow up and say, I can do that too. I can be a scientist. I can be whatever I want. So thank you.
So Tanei and I's missions align very closely. What inspired me was basically my observation of the disparities that exist. When you look out in society, you see leadership, you see power, right? And when those models don't look like you, it piques some curiosity in your mind. And so, my passion is really getting women involved in public policy and leadership in both the public and private sector. And me growing up here in Salt Lake City, Utah, I'm originally from Hawaii, but I was raised here. I didn't see very many models in the public policy arena that looked like me or thought like me or essentially were female. And so that kind of sparked my interest in pursuing a career in politics. I lived in Washington, D.C. for 13 years. Where I was surrounded by amazing, amazing women who shared the same passion. And one thing I did learn is when you I can identify women who have similar interests and similar to the mission of Braid, right? Bringing all of those voices and minds and ideas together, you can have an extremely powerful, powerful impact. Utah is one of the lowest in terms of women's representation in the state legislature. But I also believe that the talent pool of women here in Utah is one of the most untapped resources our country has, right? It's like phenomenal women, we have the talent. If we could just open up those opportunities through things like what Tanei is doing and everyone else here on the panel, I think we can capitalize on that resource. So inspiration, all of you sitting here today. So very simple.
Sui Lang for legislator.
I'm behind the scenes.
No, we got you. So I kind of came at this in a very roundabout way. Went abroad 9 years ago with a particular focus. I was in Uganda, and then just saw the situation where many women had the economic burden for the home, but there was very little work for women in the local community, and so very naively jumped into starting a nonprofit, like didn't know what we were doing. But it's taken a lot of years to get to sustainability, but what really drives us is jumping off of what Ali talked about a lot, is our brand of alleviating poverty is giving people fair work. And once people have a steady income, a reliable, fair, and steady income, they can then solve their own many problems associated with poverty in that one way. And so, I'm flying out to Uganda tomorrow. After I move out of my apartment tonight. Yeah. But that's what my ask should have been. Movers? Right? Yeah.
I'm interested in boxing.
Just seeing, for example, just talking about the motivation, one woman that's worked with us for 9 years. When we were first there, I was there with a group of college students, and she would come and wash clothes for our group, and she was very shy and wouldn't really look you in the eye, and didn't speak a lot of English, so we couldn't interact a lot. But after a couple of years in our program, I met her again. She is just this vivacious. She's like the class clown of our artisan group. She's really sarcastic, which doesn't often exist in that society. I'm always like, she's very, she's a force to be reckoned with. And so she always had that big personality, but it had been clouded by her life situation. And so having the dignity of work has been something that, seeing what that does for people has been a motivation to keep at it.
Yes. Okay, Abby.
So I work in education, obviously. So my dad's from Malaysia, and I grew up in Hawaii, so there's this long story of how I got there. But I've seen the way education has changed his life and the trajectory of his life. His parents were rubber plantation workers, and now he has his own business, and he's self-sufficient, and he's provided for my family. And for me, education is why I got involved in social impact. And so I've seen the way that I can transform a family's life. And UVU, I feel like, is, at least in this state, the best way to provide access to education. Not only do we have a top-tier master's degrees and full 4-year degrees, but we have associateships and technical abilities. And I mean, our freshman class, 38% of our freshman class, they are first-generation college students. We are fulfilling a huge need in Utah for people who need education at an affordable cost. I mean, 52% of our students get financial aid. 52% of them work part-time. 25, I think it's 32% of our students are older than 25. So we're looking at non-traditional students who have families who are trying to get those degrees. And for me, that's my passion is I work in fundraising, and sometimes it's uncomfortable to ask for money, but I get the opportunity to help people who have the means to help other people get the education they need to have a fulfilling life. So for me, that's why social impact is so amazing, because I mean, we're not enabling anybody, we're giving them the tools, the knowledge, the ability to do that for themselves.
That is awesome to hear about. And each one, I just keep thinking of all the people that you are touching their lives and bringing them out of poverty. And it is just amazing, just the 6 women here, how big of an impact they're making. The next question, again, all of you don't have to answer this one, but how do you stay motivated when it seems like the progress of your program becomes stagnant?
I'll give a quick answer. So, for me, it's really, sometimes as an entrepreneur, you feel very alone. Even though you're not, you just have to talk about it. But every time I would go to Guatemala, and before we had kids, we were going every 4 to 6 weeks because we just had so much infrastructure to build. It was the people, it was the changes that we were making in people's lives, and them telling us their personal stories and showing us the homes, additions to their homes they were able to build or put plumbing in their house or something like that. So that was incredibly motivating. And my mom, she would always help me.
I can answer this one too. So just a little bit of background on Vivid Gives Back. Part of our mission is to provide smart home systems into families' homes that have children with a disability. An interesting fact is that 60% of kids with autism elope from the home, meaning they leave the home. And that can be incredibly scary. Some kids with autism are nonverbal or just have no fear and have no sense of danger. There's just it's incredibly scary sometimes. And so part of what we do is we install those systems, and then I talked about some of the other events that we do, and I'm just going to read a quote from a mom that sent us this thank you. So a little background on this too, we just did an unbirthday party, because oftentimes kids with disabilities don't get invited to birthday parties, and they're left out. And so we just threw a huge unbirthday party for everyone with disabilities and without disabilities just a couple weeks ago to celebrate and did some fun things. So this is a thank you from that mom. She says, "Thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts for this event. I can't imagine the work that went into it. When it comes to birthdays, Robbie was always left out, wondering why he wasn't good enough and why people didn't like him. But on Saturday, he felt loved. He felt empowered. For one priceless afternoon, he was normal. He was accepted. And to this special needs mom, there is no greater gift. Vivint has always been special to us. From the very first phone call, me in tears because Robbie got out of the house again at 3 a.m., to the amazing follow-up support, so her referencing her smart home system at an incredibly discounted rate. And now the birthday party. I feel so very lucky to be with this company. I have a peace I haven't felt since our diagnosis. You have given me back my family in so many ways. Thank you." And for us to hear those words, "You've given me back my family," it still gives me chills. And that's what keeps us motivated, and me personally motivated as well.
So for me, something that I have done that has been really helpful is the team that I work with, they know what we're doing, and then so when I get discouraged, they remind me. I'm gonna cry because I think about the mom who came up to me and said, "This was the best day of my child's life," for them to see other people and I don't know, just like Sui Lang mentioned, I don't see a ton of successful women who look like me, but they get to, and it's a big deal, it matters. And then also, Whitney Houston's Greatest Love of All song, Desiree, You Gotta Be, those are the songs that like replay in my mind. Right, yeah. When I feel sad, I'm like, oh, I believe that children will
Thinking like, we started off with only thinking of our cause and just like, that's all we thought of. But if we don't think about the model of how that's going to be funded, we're never going to get anywhere. And we didn't for a long time until we figured it out.
I second what she said.
I have a unique answer to that too. First of all, Vivint Gives Back is funded by employee donations. We have an incredible, generous employee base that funds our mission, and then Vivint matches that, which is really generous of them. But like Melissa was saying, so we raise money, but we also give a lot of money away, and it has to be that two-way street. We get approached for sponsorships and partnerships every day, all the time. People are needing their funding as well. But one thing that we've learned, and like Melissa touched on, is that it has to be mutually beneficial. So other people that align with our mission, that is where we're going to be able to spend that money and donate, and to create unique partnerships. Every one of our partnerships is completely customized. We work really closely with Make-A-Wish, Special Olympics, National Ability Center. There's a lot, but they all have a specific niche within our organization that fulfills us and we fulfill them.
Thank you. Again, this question might not apply to everyone, but what are some challenges and successes you've experienced as you recruit and manage teams of volunteers?
We don't have volunteers right now, everybody's paid, so.
Yes. Anyone that's worked with volunteers?
We're all volunteering right now. So successes, I think, we look for people who are already doing things, right? Because if they're already doing things in their own life, then when they come to volunteer, they're not just going to sit down. You're not going to have to tell them what to do because they see it and they're already doing it. That's all I really have.
Any challenges?
Challenges?
With working with
I do think that also you have to make sure that they know your mission and that they are 100% on with that. Because there's nothing like having a volunteer answer a question incorrectly for you, right? So just make sure that they are on brand, that they know exactly what your goals are, and that they're in it to work hard.
I would just say volunteers, anyone that represents your organization and your brand is a brand ambassador. And so, similar to what you were saying, make sure that they are properly trained and oriented and they know the talking points before you put them out there.
Perfect. Next question is, what are some unique challenges that you face as women founders in the social impact world?
So in higher education, especially in Utah, there are not a lot of women in upper management or administration. And some of that's Utah's demographic, right? Other times it's, for higher education, you kind of have to have those years of experience. And so if you're taking a break in your career, you oftentimes don't get those years. So I'm incredibly grateful. We have a new president that's coming in September, and her name's Astrid Timinez, and she's a Filipino woman. And as an Asian woman, I was absolutely floored. Like, I went to all of the interviews, and I just was like, I can't hope. Like, I didn't want to put my hope that this would happen, and it did, and I like cried when they announced it. Because I couldn't believe that someone like me was in higher education at the very top. And so, what was the original question?
Yeah, just any unique challenges.
Unique challenges. So I am often the only woman in the room, and doubly the only person of color in the room. And so I always make it a point to speak out. Like, as uncomfortable as I feel or as inadequate, I have valuable opinions and a different perspective and a different background and experience than people, whether or not it's my education or my work experience. But really taking the step to push yourself out there and say, hey, you know what, here's something. I think teaching people how to brainstorm correctly, I think, is an incredible way to promote the diversity of thought. And so being able to be in higher education and having that open mindset has been very, very helpful.
For in manufacturing, that's more where I'm involved, is really interesting because these companies that own big old factories are like the good old boys. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting because my mom and I were actually really heading the start of Menenco together. And I am lighter skinned, she's brown skinned, and we're both women. In Guatemala, you cannot get anywhere with the factories. I mean, this is my challenge. I'm telling you what my challenge has been, and would be that they just don't take you serious as a woman in general, and especially, and I don't have that problem in the U.S. I really don't. But when I leave the country, my husband, who's sitting back there, we've had to have him jump in an email and say, hey, we need that leather. Thank you. And it comes the next day. That type of thing. Or we have they just, it's just something about men with light skin that they're just like, I respect you. And no matter what you do, and it's kind of like, man, but I'm the boss. They just don't get it. So it's really frustrating, and it's a real problem. And sometimes no matter what you do to prove yourself, it's just, some people just aren't going to change.
I'm just remembering, I would say by and large, I have positive experiences being a female entrepreneur, social entrepreneur. I am very often one of the only women in the room, but people have been way supportive. I've been able to find mentors, and I mean, one of the challenges is my mentors are all men, but they've been awesome, and they've been so willing and like, go girl, and we're gonna make this, and that's been amazing. But I just want to tell this experience because it was so dumb. I was up in Salt Lake, and at this it was a entrepreneur something, and there was kind of a young guy working for a particular bank, and I was talking to I think 3 other guys that were all college students, and the guy that worked for the bank came over to us, and he shook the 3 guys' hands and said hey, I do small business loans and and I knew that I was the only entrepreneur in the 4 of us, and so I said, oh, do you loan to women? because he like hadn't acknowledged me. And so I think we need to like, yeah, like, yes, he felt a little lame, and as he should have, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we don't have to like be like I like laughed it off, but I was like, oh, you love women? And he was like, oh, like fumbled with his card. So I think that we can, I don't think, you know, I think there are particular challenges sometimes in Utah with some mentalities, but I don't think that by and large people need to. They like grew up a certain way. And so we need to help people to understand that like, that was really dumb, but I can show you another way. And I can be a capable, articulate woman to show that we're worth investing in.
Yeah.
I love those comments, and it's true. It's just bringing awareness and continuing to push yourself, like you said, out of your comfort zone. And over time, as more and more women step up and start pursuing their passions, it'll slowly start changing. And yeah. So let me see what's next. I got so enthralled in what your comments were that I wasn't even seeing like what question I was going to do next. So let's see here. Okay, so all of us, I think, in the room are really moved by what you guys are doing, and we'd all like to make changes ourselves. So what advice do you have for those of us that want to make a change in something in our community?
My advice is to first do your homework. Whether that's understanding the problem and all of its angles, figuring out the different avenues that you could take and picking the best one. Do that first before you start, because sometimes you waste a lot of effort just saying, oh, I'm going to fix this, here we go, but it's the wrong way to approach the issue. And second of all, I said, look at who else is doing what you want to do. There are other nonprofits, there are other women, there are other organizations who are already interested in that issue that you may be interested in. Combine your efforts, combine your resources, combine your people. That's where you don't have to do all the work, and you can combine and create a much larger effect than you would by yourself.
So I almost wore a t-shirt tonight that says, be the change you wish to see. And it's because I really think that that's what we have to do. And for me, my battle on the regular in my business is fast fashion versus sustainable, ethical fashion. And for me, it's kind of like, we're never going to stop fast fashion unless you stop shopping from them. And people like to complain about, you know, the disservices and how, you know, unethical and whatever. But it's really easy to go to H&M and buy, you know, a shirt for $20 or whatever. So it's hard to be the change you want to see, but that's the only way you can really make a difference, is one by one.
I have a couple of examples, and I would say my advice is just to, like she said, do your research, but then when that research is done, don't be afraid to ask. A couple examples of a couple programs that we do. So one of the events that we do every year is called Feed My Starving Children, and we hand pack meals for individuals with special needs that are malnourished throughout the world. In our gym down in Provo, we have like over 1,200 volunteers come and pack. And we've done that for 8 years now, and it all started because there was one guy that went to Feed My Starving Children with his family over a Christmas break in Minnesota, and he lives here in Utah, and he loved the mission so much, and he was like, man, I gotta take this to Utah. And he didn't know anyone at Vivint, didn't know anyone at Vivint Gives Back, started making some connections, eventually landed at Vivint Gives Back and said, hey, there's this really cool program, it's called Feed My Starving Children, would you guys want to partner? I need a gym, I need a facility, I need some volunteers, I'm just interested in continuing this program. And at the time, it really fit the mission and it fit what we needed. We wanted to provide a mass amount of volunteer opportunities for our employees, and that was the ticket, and we've been doing it for 8 years now. In fact, just under 2 million meals, just because this man, who was passionate in the community, decided to ask. Another really short story is we have been funding a soccer camp specifically for kids with autism in Utah County because a 14-year-old girl and her family, her brothers are twins and they have autism, and they're passionate about getting them opportunities for inclusion in sports. and there's not a camp for soccer in Utah County, but there is in Salt Lake. So they had structured and built this camp based off the one they'd been to in Salt Lake, and just started asking for donations and volunteers and businesses and community members to support, and it's like tripled in growth every year. Just incredible. So I think that action and not being afraid to ask, if it aligns, oftentimes we do say yes. And so I think there's a million, I'm sure everyone has a million stories of like that too, just really inspiring people. So don't be afraid to ask.
I have to add, I mean, I don't have to add anything. She said the same thing I would say is just show up to things, start asking questions, figuring out where the holes are in programs that already exist, and just keep showing up, keep asking questions, finding out all, like she said, all the angles. I'm done.
I know, I feel like everybody already stole my responses, but if I could add anything, just kind of ask yourself the question, is what I'm doing right now fulfilling you? I've seen, especially back in the DC area, almost everybody like has a job that pays the bills, then they also have something on the side that fulfills their passion, right? When you can find something that can satisfy both, that's the American dream. That's gold right there. But ask yourself, what is the need? What do I need to fulfill me? That can be your avenue for social impact. And then the other thing I was going to say, I forgot, so it must not be that.
I have conversations with people a lot about this. They're like, I want to get into doing something that's impactful. I just have my day job or whatever. And something that we often end up discussing is, I don't think that when you're doing good, you just need to be a warm body somewhere. Where you can do the most impact is by, your guiding star is by looking inward. And getting, what is your gift? That's where you can make the most difference, is by not just being a warm body, but being able to uniquely contribute what you have to give to the world. So discovering that is kind of this preliminary step to then, that will guide you to how you can make a difference.
Okay, I remembered what I was going to say. You have to believe it. If you don't believe it, you can't even begin to convince anyone else to. But when your idea is simply a concept, something that exists in your head, you have to believe that it can manifest itself, that it can turn into 500 women, coming together and girls empowering each other, and it will happen.
Okay, I have to plug a book really fast. So, calling, passion, all of that. My professor, I'm going to plug his book. He just released it on Amazon. It's called The Zookeeper's Secret by Jeff Thompson. Basically, he's a researcher who has tried to study how people find their callings in life, your passions, what parts of what it's made of, whatever your calling is, whether it's a mother or a career woman or whatever it is. It's a book that can help you define what your passion and calling is in life and how to align that, whether it's with your career or just like an on-side venture. Anyway, fabulous book. You should all read it.
I'm writing it down right now. Zookeeper's Secret.
Yep, Jeff Thompson.
Okay. Your comments reminded me of a podcast I listened to recently, and I just thought it went perfectly with this question, because they said, even if you're not a part of a specific organization that's making a difference, like you yourself aren't a part of it, that actually your dollar, what you choose to buy and what you choose to spend your money on, is a vote for whatever you're passionate about. And the podcast I was listening was talking specifically about organic foods and choosing to support local farmers or whatever it is. But like Ali talked about, she's teaching people that even though you're spending more for this purse, it's making an impact somewhere else versus just buying something cheap. And so really, you can think about whatever I'm passionate about. The list could go on forever. And say I'm passionate about women-owned businesses, and you choose to spend your dollar only at women-owned businesses, and the way you spend money can make an impact and make change, and you don't even have to be a part of an organization to do that. So that just reminded me of that podcast. Okay, last question. What are some of your big initiatives that you and your team are working on over the next 6 months? I just kind of want to see your big vision of what's coming up, what you're working on, and what your goals are. Not all of you have to answer, just some. If you're working on something big, tell us.
Mine's a secret project. It's not really. I just haven't told that many people. But I'm working on right now primarily handbags and accessories, and I'm making a big push to do a sustainable clothing line. And so I'm really excited about that. And most of it, everything right now I do is out of the country because my mission is to work with Indigenous people. But this is made in the USA, which I really love. So.
That's exciting. One thing that we do at Vivian Gives Back is we do a large summer Santa program. We give 3,000 kids Christmas in a 1-week span. And so it's a pretty massive project, so we're kind of ramping up for that. But we also have offices all across the nation. We have an office in Boston, Minnesota, Las Vegas, a lot of offices here in Utah. And my work right now, a lot of my time is spent on how to engage those employees to become volunteers and to make meaningful volunteer opportunities for them that fit within our mission, so that they can make an impact in their own communities as well.
We are running Provo Girls Summit 2019. March 7th at the Provo Library. So that's what we're doing. That's our big thing. We're recruiting professionals. We are trying to become a legitimate nonprofit. But it's hard. I don't know. Thanks. Melissa says it's hard too. And so we're doing all of those things and hoping to expand in the next 2 years.
Okay, so my product is basically training. So I'm in the process of developing 3 training products, and I call them learning products with a purpose. So the first one is rethinking your brand. The second is rethinking social media, kind of examining the impact, psychological impact social media is having on us, and also promoting responsible social media engagement. And the third thing is rethinking diversity, because we're kind of redefining how we look at diversity, how do we define it, and integrating unconscious bias aspect to that as well too, which I think we can all agree is essential, especially in this time of our country's history.
Can I tell you guys what I'm doing tomorrow? So we have a really big task before us. So we work specifically, we only work business to business, so we source products for businesses so that they can practice more ethically. And we are doing our biggest order yet. We're doing a little over 100,000 handmade bracelets from Uganda. And so they've been working on this. We have over 500 women working on this project. They've been working for a few months, and we have to ship in 3 weeks. And like just 1 week ago, so my role is basically what happens in the U.S. We have like this incredibly capable manager and mid-level management that started as artisans and are now managing these groups. And but just 1 week ago, she told me that this elastic string that we're using, she had bought out all of the elastic string in East Africa, and she's like, we only have enough for about 1/3 of the bracelets. And I was like, but we're shipping in 3 weeks. Like, what? So I just had the packages, the last packages arrived today. I bought out all of the string in the US. So like seriously, I think I'll have 3 large suitcases just full of string, and I'm just hoping that it gets through customs. So just send good vibes my way. But it'll be really fun. We typically have 60 full-time artisans, and we've reached out to artisan groups around the region to work on this order so that we can fulfill this large number. And so I'm just excited to go and meet with the other groups that have come on. And many of them are very talented artisans that just don't have a market connection, so they just don't have places to sell what they're doing. So they've had consistent work for these last several months, so it'll be really fun. And now our task is to continue to find these type of orders so that we can continue to work with all 500 women. So that's our task.
Big things at UVU. I mean, so much is happening, just come on by. There's, I mean, next week, 37,282 kids will be here. So, I mean, it's just growing. I mentioned scholarship ball. I was put in charge of that last week, and it's in 2 months. So, I mean, honestly, we're just trying to raise money to give kids scholarships, to build buildings, to get enough classrooms for the amount of students that we're having. I mean, I think we're projected to grow to like 46,000 in 2025. Like, just huge numbers, fulfilling this need in this community. But yeah, I mean, there's so many things that you can do right now at UVU. Like, if you're looking for a certification, an associate's degree, I mean, online, like, we have all the options, all these different special trainings. We have an actual social impact center. And what students do is they work with businesses and people in the community, whether it's projects, research, I mean, actual service hours. I mean, there's an incredible gambit of who they're involved with and what they do, but that's one of our core themes is engaged learning. And so we force our students, we want them to get real world experience while they're in school so that they can make the best choice for themselves in their career. So if you're interested in inclusivity, we have an award-winning inclusive program across our university. It's won numerous awards. There, you can always be involved in that. So just come down to UVU. You can find probably your passion there somewhere.
Thank you so much for your answers. I'm going to open it up to the audience for a few questions. Does anyone have a question they'd like to ask our panelists? Yes, go ahead.
I'm trying to work with around railroad in the week, and I'm trying to brainstorm how to reach a more male audience, because it's like 60% women, so not terrible as far as supporters, but we want to get more men involved. So I'm curious what you would recommend to find that out, as far as finding out what would connect with them and what we're going to get their support. What organization? Oh, you are Operation Underground Railroad. Okay.
I would just say, from a marketing perspective, when I'm trying to reach a certain audience, I find collaborations are everything. And so to find maybe a male figure that has a captive audience, or that is a community leader, or some sort of, has some pull in your industry, I would really try and collaborate with that person and see if you can plug it into his audience.
Yeah, I was going to say along the same lines, the most success that I find is that I find a brand ambassador, if you will, an evangelist for our cause, and once they're passionate about it, they get everyone more passionate.
So I don't know exactly what kind of people you're looking for to help you, but I mean, find a gateway drug, whether that's, hey, you want accounting experience, come help out in our accounting department, and as they're working, they can learn about your mission, and that can help them, volunteer for the mission instead of just kind of what they're looking for themselves. Does that make sense? So finding a passion in your volunteers and saying, hey, there's an opportunity for you to practice that skill or increase your skill at our organization, and then bringing them into your mission and evangelizing them that way, I guess is the word.
Yeah, any other questions? No questions? That's fine.
One got one.
Yes.
How can we best support you all?
Yes, great question.
Come to school.
Shop sustainably. Ask how your clothing is made. Ask where it's made, who's making it, knowing the faces behind what you're investing your money in. Doesn't have to be my brand, but it's a meaningful purchase to me.
Mine's kind of along the lines that I've been talking about tonight. Just as a member of the community, if you see a child that maybe is throwing a tantrum, or looks different than you, or talks differently than you, is nonverbal, communicates different, take a moment and just think, take a step back. Oftentimes it's really easy to just be like, what is that mom doing? Or what is that person, why is that child freaking out? And just take a step back and acknowledge that there is something more maybe going on, and just taking that moment to give some space and to give some respect as well.
So as I mentioned before, I'm looking for I need volunteers all the time. And for women who are in, Ashley, Samantha, I'm sorry. Like Samantha mentioned before, I'm looking for women who are in higher education jobs, owning their own businesses, women who are doing things. So if you know those people, send me their information.
You could register to vote. You can vote. You can run for public office. You can join us at one of our trainings, and you can join one of our think tanks. They're super fun, and it's I just have a really deep passion for. So in the political arena, we live in a two-party system. So we have Republicans, we have Democrats, and everyone in between. Oftentimes, in today's political climate, we're not having conversations with each other across the aisle. So coming to these policy tanks really opens up our minds to mitigate those unconscious biases that we have about the other side, if you will, if you could minimize it to that, and be more open to understanding, okay, that's what they see. That's why they've come to that position. It will positively impact every other aspect of your life. So I hope you can join one of our conversations.
How do we find out about when those are and how to join them?
Oh, well, the next one is September 19th. We don't know the location yet, but it's a Friday. It'll be somewhere here in Lehigh, because a lot of the women that will be participating live in Utah County and in Salt Lake County as well. This is kind of like somewhere in the middle. But yeah, I have a website too. Rethink, so it's Rethink International. I just did some rebranding. So it's Rethink INTL, which is the abbreviation for international.com.
If you're working for a company, and this again going back to like whatever way you do this, you can always, like you as an employee have a lot of sway in what companies are operating more ethically because millennials are demanding it. Like, I want to work for a company that does good. So you can be a voice of like, hey, what are we thinking about our supply chain? Like, where did these parts come from? You know, thinking that way with your company. Or like, are we doing more than just making money? So that's something for that cause. But I love any introductions to companies that what we can kind of do is like, this is a first step. And so Vivint has this like incredibly robust give back program, but companies that are maybe young or are kind of starting out can take one step towards operating more ethically by even just gifting their employees gifts that are ethical for Christmas. And that's one step, and being able to tell those artisan stores. So yeah, any interest in cool companies?
You have a question in the back.
Yeah, I've been, like, this whole time I've been sitting here, I've been thinking, gosh, I wish, like, more people, like, knew about these causes and these efforts that are being made, and I know there are a million more that are happening in this region right here that I don't even know about, and I just wonder if you have ideas or if there is, like, a really great source that we can turn people to say, here, look at all of the causes, like, is there a hub for that? Yet, is that a need that is out there? Because what? I've been thinking that. I'm like, I need to.
Sounds like a social entrepreneur in the making back here.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of this panel.
So we just launched earlier this year a chapter in Utah. It's called the Social Enterprise Alliance. So it's this whole spectrum of from nonprofit to for-profit, but all with the idea of doing social good in a market-driven approach. But I think it just spans the entire spectrum. So we've been doing like an assessment of the social enterprise ecosystem in Utah. And the biggest thing is that we're disconnected from each other. There's a lot going on because Utah's really good at business and has a really good giving culture, but we have not had things together. So look us up. We've done a couple of events, but we're trying to make events that people that are interested in this can come to rub shoulders and like talk about how we can push that cause forward. So it's called. What's that? Yes. Allie was one of the first members of the group. You've been a member for a while, huh? Yeah. So she was part of what made us be able. We had to have 10 members, 10 company members. So you're part of that to get us started earlier this year. So yeah. So thank you. It's called the Social Enterprise Alliance, SEA. So find us on Facebook, and we're in like September 20th, so the day after your event, is it? Yeah. At the U, we're doing a full day training on impact evaluation. So we have like experts from all around and organizations that are doing impact evaluation, because we can think we're doing good, but then if we're not evaluating, then are we actually doing good? So this is kind of presenting models that we can implement. They don't have to be really expensive. We're talking about lean data, so how you can just in a lean or inexpensive way be able to measure your impact and be able to track that. So that's happening. You can come to that session. I know we have an early bird special, I think, for a week, the next week. Anyways, so we'll post about it on Social Enterprise Alliance, but check us out. And yeah.
If you need help with your impact evaluation, so I graduated from the BYU MPA program. They have a program evaluation class that sources volunteers, basically other nonprofit organizations that need help with their data, analyzing. And so if you let me know, I can contact you with that professor. They're always looking for organizations who have collected data but don't really know what to do with it or how to analyze it, and they have master students who can help you out. So I don't know.
Yes.
Just to answer that, I don't know if any of you guys are on this website, but there's a website called Charity Navigator, and then about close to 10,000 charities are on there, and they give ratings for those 10,000 charities of their financial health, their transparency, and their accountability. And I know they have even way greater more charities even listed on there. I don't know how hard it is to get listed, but they say they have like 11 million visitors every year going there to search for charities, to see charities they trust. And maybe when you're trying to do your own charity, to go look at the ones that are rated well and just see how they're being transparent, their financial health, just see if we can kind of model like it.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you so much for being here, and can we get a round of applause for our amazing with us. We want to wrap up by doing the giveaway. So we're going to do the giveaway, and then I just want to do a quick announcement. Next month, our event is September 20th as well. Sorry, but we want to share that as well. So
Ours is during the day. Yours is the night.
Yes, perfect.
You just drive
and
from
it's
there.
in Salt Lake City.
Oh, there you go.
So it's going to be great. So our next event is on September 20th, and it's about how to find loyal customers. So if you want to come there, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook, just Braid Workshop, look us up. We share all our events, and we love to share other events, so please let us know the details, and we'll share other events that are happening, and you can be aware of what's going on in the community.